Yeah, good evening, all of you. Welcome to this 210th edition of Thursday Musings. So after 210th episode, after speaking so much, we'll learn how to speak to anyone easily. So Rajiv Mehta boss is there. Rajiv sir, some non-medical persons might also be joining. They are interested in the topic. So we'll take care of that also. The session will be recorded, kept on the YouTube for later on viewing. The participants are muted. They can post their questions in the chat box, which will be taken up to the presenter. Next slide, please. So I'm now handing over the session to the chairman of this program, Professor Dr. Tufan Pati sir. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. I'm sorry I'm a bit late because of moments. And I, I will briefly introduce and present in this forum Dr. Amrit Patirusi, Treasurer IPS, Secretary IPS, Dr. Lim Siddiqui, Treasurer IPS, and Dr. Bisal Chabra as the vibrant moderators of the session. Shreya, please move on to the next slide. Our chairperson, Dr. Satyan Sharma from New Delhi. He is an empathetic psychiatrist with a distinguished career spanning over 16 years. Trained at the prestigious Armed Forces Medical College in Pune, Dr. Sharma has dedicated his professional life to advancing mental health care in the Punjab and NCR regions. In addition to his extensive clinical practice, Dr. Sharma has played a key role in shaping the psychiatric field to his leadership positions. He has served as secretary and subsequently president of the Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, Punjab and Chandigarh State Branch, reflecting his commitment to the profession and his influence within the field. Dr. Sharma's primary areas of interest are addiction psychiatry and general adult psychiatry. His expertise in these areas is complemented by his role as the CEO of Mindsmith, India's pioneering scientific mental health platform. Under his leadership, Mindsmith has emerged a unique and innovative resource in mental health care. Dr. Sharma's extensive experience, leadership roles, and groundbreaking work with Mindsmith make him a respected figure in the psychiatric community. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next is Dr. Anjali Chabria. She is quite well known on this platform. She is India's leading psychiatrist and psychotherapist and author of the book Death is Not the Answer, Understanding Suicide and Ways to Prevent. She has been contributing to the field of mental health since the last 2.5 decades. She runs Mind Temple, a mental health center in Mumbai that caters to psychiatric, emotional, and behavioral needs of the individuals. She is also a trained past life regression therapist, hypnotist, and has introduced innovative treatment modalities aimed at constantly improving patient care. Welcome, Dr. Anjali. Hereafter, the meeting belongs to the chairperson. Someone has to introduce the speaker and the other the topic. We'll introduce the speaker. Dr. Anjali will introduce the speaker.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Next
Can I
slide,
have the
please.
slide, please? Yeah.
Please
So,
take over.
Dr. Rajiv, yes, yes. Welcome everybody to today's session. Special welcome to Dr. Rajiv Mehta. I have been happily involved with his book because I remember reading about the book and reading the book.
Next, yes, okay.
Yes, he has done his MBBS from New Delhi, MD in psychiatry also from New Delhi, and has done his disaster mitigation, as we can all see from Sikkim Manipal University. Got excellent for his work both as a senior resident psychiatrist and a junior resident ENT. Wow, that's great. Has publications in national and international journals, has presented scientific papers, authored 2 books, one on psychiatry, The Ready Reckoner, and the second one, Speak to Anyone Easily, which Rupa Publications has, published. And it's a fantastic book. Whoever has not read it, please order your copy today. And of course, Dr. Satyan, would you like to add something, or should we ask Dr. Rajiv to speak?
Yes, madam, absolutely. I think we should jump straight into it and have Dr. Rajiv share his wisdom on the topic. So, over to the speaker. Thank you.
Rajiv can unmute.
Right. Let me start the slide here. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So the topic today is speak to anyone easily, and I'm going to speak whatever is there in my book in short format. So the disclaimer is this is the work of my own life and clinical experiences. All the audience here is an expert, and I'm not going to tell anything which is new to you people. I've just costed the experiences as a book, and further experiences are welcome so that I can take out the second edition. I would like to thank the organizers who provided me an opportunity to go through my book again after 7 years and exclaim, oh my God, have I written this book? So a wow moment for me. Then again, I will extend my thank to the organizer to let me express my views on this topic. Words are the chemicals which can make or break the relations or the human bonds. Whenever we speak, basically, there are two things when we speak. The first one is the intention, the other is how we approach it. Intent is basically the reason why it is being said and to what purpose or to what end. It is generally a subjective or an internal phenomena. While approach is the style or way of achieving the intent, it is an objective phenomena and observable phenomena by all. The purpose of this book is to understand what needs to be changed, that is the wrong methods of communication, to what it should be changed and how it should be changed to better ways of communication and putting the same intent in different approaches. We all know about expressed emotions. We have all read about expressed emotions. That is a very old term. Now, when we view it, basically we express each and every emotions. So why expressed emotions are bad? So in a way, we see that when they're excessively expressed, the emotions are excessively expressed, then they are bad. Otherwise, we keep on expressing our emotions all the day. So rather than taking the term as expressed emotions, I connoted it as displaced emotions because they are excessive in their placement. So before I proceed to the do's and don'ts of the communication, let me tell you one thing, that it is not a single incident of expressed emotion or displaced emotion, but it is the regularity and multiplicity of wrong communication methods that is the culprit in each and every relation. Like you must have all heard of the story of rope and well. When a soft rope goes through the well, the stone at the well, it still leaves an impression on that hard rock. So when the regularity and multiplicity of wrong methods of communication is there, it will leave an impact. And the wrong communication will leave a wrong impact. And we all see in our daily clinical practice how the communication impacts the mental illnesses and as well as the other illnesses, as well as the compliance in the patients. So we have to detect which family is having these wrong communication methods so that we can counsel them and make their communication better. So I have been practicing psychiatry since 2001 when I joined psychiatry as a PG in Maulana Azad. Initial few years, I didn't see much of that expressed emotions in the family, but in past 1 decade or so, the displaced emotion epidemic is coming over. And why that is coming over? if I see clearly when I gathered my data, observed the data, that higher education is one of the reason behind it. Because as we go on with the education on a higher stand, we crave for perfection. There is an obsession with the observation. And that doesn't limit to the education only or the professional sphere. That spills down to the personal sphere also. And that when it spills down to personal sphere and we observe minute mistakes, then it starts giving the problem. But it doesn't mean that the higher education is wrong, but it definitely means that it has its own share of problems, which we should keep in our mind or brain. Then another phenomena which is being seen in high quantity is that I am always right mentality. With more knowledge, money, and power, the people are having this mentality, and that pressure and need to assert one individuality makes the communication haywire. Lack of social bonding with the digital media coming over. There is lack of social bonding, deprivation of social empathy, and deficiency in properly expressing their emotions is one of the result of lack of social bonding. High pressure jobs is another factor, pressure of performance and achieving high profits. It leads to criticizing the young employees and punishing their smallest of the mistakes. Like in the recent past, we have heard at least 2 or 3 news of job pressure and the suicides associated with it. And family environment and family traits are another factor. Since the child sees in the family, he or she also gathers those traits. Who are these displaced people? Displaced people means that one who express more of expressed emotions. The individuals who are highly intelligent. There are few people who have chronic dissatisfaction syndrome. Whatever you do, they will always be dissatisfied. Even if you do it as per their specification, they will still see the glass empty, maybe by 1% only. The individuals who have OCP traits, dominant narcissistic personalities, they also are full of expressed emotions. The people who have rags to riches stories, they are very anxious and they also have displaced emotions. And the people who have handled a lot of responsibilities or handling a lot of responsibilities, who are under a lot of pressure, they also express a lot of expressed emotions. Their communication is basically on these lines, which is hurting to others. Then comes the chapter on who are more susceptible to these expressed emotions. Not everybody is that much prone to the illness because of these expressed emotions, but there are few people who are more prone. Who are they? Those who have lived independently and now they are living in a family, in a joint family or a nuclear family. These kind of people. The pampered child. The child who has been pampered a lot, when he is thrown into the real world or when he is expected to behave like an adult, when he grows up to an adult, at that time when that child faces these displaced emotions, then he is more susceptible to be a victim. There are few people who have high potential, who are highly intelligent, but due to some circumstances, they have not achieved too much. So high potential underachieving individuals are also susceptible to these kind of emotions. Shy and introvert people, teenagers, the perpetrators of displaced emotions, the one who express emotions, displaced emotions, are also more prone to the thing when they are all become the victim of these expressed emotions. And people suffering from mental ailments that are research tells us always. But why the greater impacts now? If it was there earlier also, it didn't show that much impacts. Why the greater impacts now? So there has been lifestyle changes. Previously, there were more children per family. And the expressed emotions used to get distributed among them. Then there was ventilation among them. And the seniors used to have less time for children because there were no machines as such. And they had less expectation from the children. And there were less ambitious people. So altogether, there were no much expressed emotions which were causing the harm. Basically, everybody used to ventilate and the things used to get settled down. And with the advent of this attitude, I, me, and myself, I know each and everything. I have my rights. And with the advent of internet, the knowledge used is coming to each and everybody, and that is also bringing I, me, myself attitude and the rights attitude. This is why it is showing a greater impact nowadays. Now, how to detect in a clinical practice that the people may have expressed emotions in their family? If you see, many a times this occurrence is there that you are speaking to the patient, but the attendant will speak in between. He will not let the patient speak. So these kind of patients definitely have expressed emotions in their family. Even if when the patient is speaking, the attendant will correct or modify. He will cut it short. He will interject that patient. Again, you suspect that there may be expressed emotions in the family. And if there are preservation of old records and the records which they have brought are very well arranged, then again it is an OCP traits like of things, and the expressed emotions may be present in the family. So now coming to the second part of my book, the don'ts of the communication, the wrong methods of communication. I am presenting few of the chapters because of the time paucity. I have tried to arrange the important ones only. The first one is hostility, that is losing temper and tongue. The hostility can be generally divided into physical hostility and verbal hostility. Verbal hostility can be further divided into active and passive. Yes, it is important to note that there is passive hostility as well, that is called the silent treatment. To what purpose this hostility is expressed? It is to show dominance, to control by intimidation, and to show the displeasure. So passive verbal hostility, that is the silent treatment. It doesn't necessitate that there is a complete silence in the communication. Any decrease in either or both quality and quantity of communication is basically a passive verbal hostility. Many continue to suffer for a long time despite the victim trying to reconcile. That is, the silent treatment goes on forever and the matter is kept alive forever. It is better to communicate about the assumed mistake and the perceived fault of the victim and correct the relationship at that time. Then there is a chapter on over-concern and over-pampering. Over-concern means caring to such an extreme that the victim feels trapped and suffocated. Like in today's world, 21st century, the parents don't like to subject their child to any kind of pain. They will not let them cry even. They will fulfill their each and every demand by their own wish or by the blackmail of the child. It kills the natural enthusiasm of the person if they're too much being over concerned. And there is a very fine line between concern and over concern. Over concerned people remain in the false world of intentions. Like we initially talked about the intention and the approach. They will always tell that we are doing this because we want this. This because is basically an intention. But what you are doing is the approach. And as the age grows, these children become either rebellious or some become totally dependent on their parents. A similar occurring problem is over pampering, that is showering gifts and fulfilling every demand, and sometimes even by sacrificing one's own need or emotional state. Sometimes over pampering is shown by the working parents. Both working parents are not having the time and they will compensate their guilt by showering the gifts. And sometimes now, because there are less children families, 1 or 2 children, the grandparents also shower each and everything. Even if the parents are telling them not to do that, then the grandparents will over pamper their grandchildren. That's why it's said that the grandparents and grandchildren bond very well because they have a common enemy. So this over pampering cripples them to deal with life challenges. And there is one more
The voice
over-pampering.
somehow is not audible.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Now it's okay. Thank you.
Right. So there is another kind of over pampering over-pampering the love interest, which can be for happiness, fear of loss, or exhibiting possessiveness. But that goes for a toss once married. We all know that. So with age, priorities and expectations change, and the people are expected to outgrow, especially the children are expected to outgrow these over-pampering things. And at that time, not only the receiver of over-pampering, but also the proponent of over-pampering find himself trapped, because what to do now? The habit has been formed, and it is not easy to break the old habits. For these people, making adjustment in new relationship becomes difficult because they have always been the center of attraction. When they go into the real world is very harsh. They have an idea of caring world while the truth is different. So at that time, the mental illnesses start creeping in. The next chapter belongs to criticism. Criticism kills enthusiasm. It is a fault-finding style of communication. The people think that they have the birthright to correct others. If the other person is not heeding to their criticism, they will repeatedly remind that person to correct themselves. And it becomes more dangerous when it is without any kind of praises. So the persons who are senior by age, power, knowledge, or money, they are more proponents of this kind of expressed emotion, that is criticism. And we should not think that it is only the elders who do it. The elderly also get criticized by the younger ones for being old fashioned, technologically challenged, or negligent about their health, etc., etc., etc. Then there is a special kind of criticism which is comparison. And you try the criticism on a housemaid and you will know the impact. So criticism impacts each and everybody. You can know that impact from made in India is better than made in India. Important then. So complications of criticism starts when they think I am always right and the others are always wrong, not that the others may be wrong. So this is further complicating the matter. So this criticism becomes unbearable and a never-ending torture. They will again defend themselves by the intention. And there is a confusion between loving someone. We are criticizing because we love them so that they become all right, they become better. So there is a confusion between loving someone and having a right over someone. Criticism is purely an expression of dominance and is not an expression of love and care. Over concern and criticisms are two ends of the spectrum. So next is issuing orders. An order means directing someone to do a certain act, whether or not that the recipient of the said order is willing, and there is no chance to decline. Sometimes statements are said with adding of please, but these are orders, still orders which are disguised as request. For example, bring me water and please bring me water. Both are orders. And again, I wish to reiterate that it is not a single incident, it is a multiplicity and regularity of the incidents or the expressed emotions which are harmful to the relationship. So there can be various situations while giving orders, as the patients have told me how the family members give orders. Giving a single order once, giving a single order repeatedly at short intervals without waiting to find out if it is being followed, and giving multiple orders without waiting for the first one to be completed, or repeating multiple orders at short intervals. So this is increasing in intensity. The impact increases in intensity as these orders grow. So remember, relationships give strength, not ownership. So the victim here of the orders may learn to deal with it. Okay, I have to deal with it, or starts feeling frustrated, or both, that he has to deal with it and will still feel frustrated. Suddenly, as the victim grows independent, they can turn disobedient, which hurts the perpetrator's ego and which has its further consequences on relationship, as well as it can cause the perpetrator to undergo depression and anxiety because the dominance is decreasing. There is not an iota of doubt that seniors either at home or office have the right and duty to maintain discipline and ethics. But that is the intent. The approach has to be different, which I am going to speak in the next part of this presentation. So the justification, whenever they are talked that you are doing wrong, so they are justify their talks by quoting their intentions. But what we are worried about is the approach. Next one comes interfering, interjecting anybody in their talks. We have many times seen in a doctor chamber that we are very focused on doing the MSc and we are trying to talk the patient, but the relatives will keep on interfering with the information, and that is really disturbing. And suppose it happens regularly at home in multiple times, what will happen to those persons? That is really damaging to the relationship. So if two people are talking to each other, never interrupt, interject or interfere. हमारे बड़े बूढ़े ही कह के गए हैं, जब दो बात कर रहे हो तो बीच में बात नहीं करनी चाहिए. However, watching two people in a conversation so intently that it amounts to destruction is a kind of non-verbal interference. I am not speaking anything, but when you are watching so intently that it is disturbing the two people, then again it is an interference. It is non-verbal interference. So with this increased frequency of such interfering events, people try not to speak much in front of the interfering persons, preferring silence over the conversation, and so the relationship goes over a toss, and there are complaints by that interfering persons that I am not included in the family decisions or family ideas or family gatherings. And somebody who comes across as a know-it-all is often given a wide berth by most people. So these kind of interfering peoples are generally avoided by other people. There is another communication method using always or never in a negative way. We have always heard paap se ghrina karo, papi se nahi. That is, blame the act, not the actor. But what these people usually do, they do just the opposite. They blame the actor, punishing and accusing him of all the wrongdoings. Never and always is an all-inclusive, powerful words. They can be used both positively and negatively. Using always and never is a sweeping statement. It entails bringing up previous mistakes to exponentially highlight the present one. For example, we have heard of these things regularly. You are always busy. You never have time for the family. So currently he may not be giving the time, but now all the old things are coming over. So it is an exponential impact. You never appreciate. You're always complaining. You're never going to make it. A father saying to his son, you're never going to make it. An employer saying to his employee, you always give excuses. There is never a proper explanation. Your work is always full of mistakes. It has never benefited the company. So conjunction of always and never with other displaced emotions like criticism is exceptionally dangerous. Now, leg pulling and bullying, that is another type of emotions which looks good in the comedy shows or a Kapil Sharma shows, but not in the real life. It means taking digs at a person to have a good laugh over it. Yes, some people can tolerate, but you should know that who's able to tolerate. But the people who are not able to tolerate, they resent it very much. It means picking on others' shortcoming in the form of mockery. The intention is mostly entertainment at the cost of another person's happiness. A severe form of teasing is bullying, in which the fun is derived from deliberately hurting and intimidating. It is generally found in college and school children. The victim may not respond at that time, but he carries the resentment forever. Especially our patients are very sensitive to these kind of comments which are related and can have a relapse due to the repeated leg pulling. We have generally seen the people complaining that the talks in the family goes like this. I think you have stopped the drug, therefore you are behaving like this. We need to consult your psychiatrist again. The drug doesn't seem to be working. You're stronger than the medicines. You have even failed those medications. You are again behaving in a funny manner. Time for you to consult the psychiatrist. So these are all being said in a funny tone to pull the leg of the person who's on psycho and pharmacotherapy. And that leg pulling internally hurts. And then there is a poor compliance sometimes, or a resentment, and then there is a revenge. So such barbs often devalue the person, who then may leave the treatment midway and the illness increases. So coming to the last don'ts of communication, which is very important, asking in why form. It is the most dangerous and harmful method of communication. Why literally means asking for reasons. Digging out reasons should generally be entrusted for brainstorming by professionals like doctors, scientists, and researchers, but for sure it's not for relationships. Asking why is basically criticizing, and it is followed by the demand for explanation of their acts. It exactly means issuing a memorandum. A few examples. Why have you left the lights on? Now that means keeping the light on is wrong. Now you explain me. Why are you reading lying down? Why haven't you taken a bath? Why do you keep on worrying? Why didn't you pick up my phone? So everything entails that first part is wrong. You have done a wrong thing. Now you give an explanation to me also. So this is further dangerous. It forces the victim to think, am I that inferior? Am I a slave? Don't I have any freedom or any right to act on my own? So combining it, who are the sufferers of expressed emotions? The victim, the perpetrator, and the relationship between them. And then the expressed emotions do have a ripple effect. Ripple effect means the effect goes beyond the above three, the perpetrator, the victim, and the relationship. The effect extends to every member of the household because of the unpleasant environment, and it also extends to the professional life of everyone involved. So what can be the impacts? There can be pre-traumatic stress. It is a kind of stress that when the victim sees the proponent of expressed emotions, there is still building up of stress ki aha, ab kuch aane wala hai. There is something to go. Should I talk to him? Should I avoid him? And the stress builds up. The mental illnesses, including maladjusted personality. For victim, there is a difficulty in developing and sustaining healthy relationships, both in personal and professional life, especially when the victim is facing these expressed emotions since childhood. The relationship source, it may continue for the sake of society, but it is broken emotionally and physically. They may be staying physically together, but there is no emotional bond between the persons. Then there is rumination and discussing the perpetrator and the incidents related to that, to such an extent that all truly important things take a backseat. So that those things will keep on ruminating in the mind कि मैंने क्या कर दिया था, why I have deserved this, why the people do this is wrong, that is wrong, and slowly it culminates into hostile behavior towards the proponent. The victim may not care for the perpetrator when he is in need of support, or might take revenge even in the form of homicide. In the professional sphere, these expressed emotions may lead to loss of work hours and attrition. So what are the better approaches to deal with these things? Ignoring the trivial. The real pleasure of lies in its imperfection. Perfection is the enemy of good. Here one needs to understand what's trivial and what's not, what's insignificant and what's not. And that comes with the experience and seeing the long and short-term consequences of those acts. Here many parents tell me कि सर अगर हम छोटी छोटी चीजों को नजरअंदाज कर देंगे तो कोई ना कोई बड़ा से बड़ा दिक्कत हो जाएगी. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड व्हाट आई एडवाइज देम कि अगर आप छोटी छोटी चीजों को नजरअंदाज नहीं करोगे तो वो बड़ी बड़ी चीजें नहीं बताएंगे. So this is the reality. and the mistakes are perceived. What is a mistake for one cannot be a mistake for other. So perceived mistakes that do not cause major hurt financially or otherwise should be ignored. And how that art of ignoring comes? Ignoring isn't only in the term of verbal cues. It also involves facial expression and body language too. Some relatives after coming in the second or third consultation, they say कि हमने तो ignore करना शुरू कर दिया है, but the victim says no, they keep on making faces. So it has to be a total acceptance. Ignoring can be by staying silent. It can be by diverting the attention to some other topic or postponing the matter. The best thing that to ignore, what you can do is give a little smile and be amicable, or agree with the person and say yes and yes. Agreeing is a wonderful skill, and slowly one reaps the benefit of these skills. The second art is postponing. It is better at many a times. It works best when situation or demands need a no response, or an argument needs to be avoided. However, the caveat is the most important concept to be remembered is that each and every demand should be decided on merit and not postponed every time. Speaking the facts, that's an art. The facts is basically a neutral statement, and it is 1,000 times better than a personal comment. Neutral statement doesn't involve any association with anyone specific. There is no use of you in a factual statement. It's an open statement devised to convey a meaning which is left to the listener to decipher, who generally accept the issue internally and make amends. For example, a father saying to his son, you should not drive at high speeds, you won't be able to control the car, and you may end up in an accident. So this is advice, criticism, all throughout together. So how it can be expressed in another way, a factual or a neutral statement? Driving at high speeds is very risky. One tends to lose control and that can cause accidents. Or it can be reframed, which is the next part of my presentation. Son, can you drive at an advised speed limit? So next part, reframing sentences as questions. If why is the biggest communication problem, then using will you, can you, is it, or do you think is the solution. अगर हम हिंदी में कहें तो क्या में बात करनी है ताकि आंसर yes और no में निकले. क्या? This manner has an inherent quality of getting answers as either yes or no. The reasoning and the explanation, the pros and cons of the situation can be included in the question itself. Yes, the sentence becomes bigger, but the impact is much bigger in a positive way. Orders, advices, pointing out mistakes can all be done in this manner without hurting. There are clear expectations in these kind of statements, but there is no blame or demand. No one is being held responsible for any mistake. The listener feels that he is doing the things according to his own free will, and it creates an option for the victim to return to the better behavior next time without being fearful of a backlash. Initially, such communication may sound very formal, but however, with time, one settles down into the habit and becomes a part and parcel of the life. And if further questions can be added to it, not why questions, so that there is a freedom to speak his mind, like how will you do this, how can you do this. There is an example which I have written, but I had given a previous example also. So the last part of the presentation, acknowledging and praising. Praise simply means keeping an eye on good deeds, behavior, or the things associated with the person and making it a point to mention it to him. It doesn't mean that one needs to be extravagant. Just state it in a factual form. Even the efforts which the other person is putting, even if that act or results are not exceptional, those efforts are worth praising. And remember, lack of criticism is not praise, it's indifference. If criticism is destructive, praise is constructive. But while praising, there should be no ifs and buts. Son, you have got good marks, but maths, you have done blunder. So the first sentence goes for a toss. You can add and to it. Son, you have got good marks, and next time we will work better in maths. And one should realize the difference between praise and flattery. So the C's of communication, The wrong C is condemning, cribbing, complaining, confronting, comparing, criticizing, and the better C is complimenting. See, I got the compliment from Dr. Anjali. She already mentioned, she wrote for my book, Rajiv's research on damaging impact on the casual approach to communication is an eye-opener for everyone, an extraordinary and useful book. I am so thankful, ma'am. So before I convey my thanks, each one by at least one, and suggest it to everyone. Accept my thanks. It doesn't end here. Let me upgrade Rajiv to 2024. A recent new book has come over, RRR, Rewire, Rework and Reclaim, How to Manage Stress. That's again on my clinical experiences. It was released in August 2024. So now each of you buy these two and suggest it to every few. Accept my double thanks. Thank you all for patient listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful talk. Over to chairpersons for their opening remarks. The questions are
Thank you
in
so
the
much,
chat
sir.
box.
Yes, I already had the pleasure of going through the book before your lecture. And absolutely, these are pearls of wisdom. These are things which many times people are not even aware of. And to make words softer, to make communication more, more result oriented, I think that is a challenge which all of us face, where parents many times come to us कि हम तो बोलते रहते हैं पर इस पे कोई असर नहीं होता, right? So how to make less speech and more effective speech, I think those topics, sir, you have done a lot of justice to that. And for everybody, there are things to learn. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv, for sharing this wisdom with us today. And any questions, please? And Madam Anjali, ma'am, please. You're muted, ma'am.
Anjali, ma'am, unmute, please.
I was not being allowed to speak. So I was muted. So that is why I was saying how to speak. So, but fantastic. Really, I think we need such practical, experiential books, talks, because we all keep saying that patients don't listen to us. They're looking at us as if we belong to another world. But I think these are definitely some of the steps we need to make so that we can belong to people's world. So thank you, Rajiv, for making it so simple, so lucid, and so easy. मतलब पता ही नहीं चला इतना time निकल गया. But thank you, wonderful job. And I think we need to get the book out to as many people as we can.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Questions आए हैं क्या? Satyam, you want to take the questions?
I have a few questions if the chairperson is allowed.
Yes. Some people have
So,
expressed more information about the book. Yes.
There's a question by Dr. Nichu. Very often alcoholics relapse following spousal criticism and why statements. How should a wife talk with a sober alcoholic to maintain sobriety?
Again, those things in a question form, but in a what form, or praise when he has not drunk on that day, praise his sober behavior. So these kind of things.
So you're saying,
Rajiv was a few. Vishal, please carry on.
So, also, if you can explain in a little more detail, like how would, should you mean a balanced approach? Suppose a person who's sober lapses, drank once, comes home drunk. He was not drinking for last 3 to 4 weeks or something. तो वो लैश आउट होता है यूजली वाइफ का, आपने तुम तो हो ही ऐसे, तुम्हारा क्या फैमिली लैश आउट कर रही है. How do you manage that circumstance? If I get in more details on a day-to-day, how do you encourage the person to be more sober?
See, at that time when he is not sober, intoxicated, we cannot speak to that person. Generally, when he is sober, only then we can talk to that person, and we can talk always in what form. क्या हुआ? आपने कल फिर पी थी? हाँ, मैंने पी थी. अच्छा, क्या हुआ? कितनी पी थी? ऐसा क्या हुआ था? सो क्या आप फिर और ट्राई कर सकते हैं? पिछली बार आपने 3 महीने नहीं पी थी, बहुत अच्छा किया था, हम सब देखो कितने खुश थे, और आपने कितने एफर्ट लगाए थे. प्रेजिंग नाउ. क्या? एंड प्रेजिंग कम्स, and slowly build up the things.
Ralim.
Okay, Rajiv was a few situations. Let me start from the clinic scenario that you gave, because many times we have the patients. I am trying to talk with the patient. The patient is also trying to talk to me, and the spouse or other guardian, he keeps on interfering, he or she. So, how to basically politely turn the interfering person away? What to do there? Your own experiences and thoughts.
Right, sir. उसके अंदर मैं क्या करता हूँ कि sir, we have limited time. Can I concentrate on the person concerned? एंड आप बड़े लोग ही समझाते हैं कि जब दो जने बात कर रहे हो तो बीच में नहीं बोलते, तो क्या मैं इनसे पूरी बात कर सकता हूँ? उसके बाद आपको पूरा टाइम मिलेगा जब आप पूरा बता सकेंगे. सेकंड टाइम हुआ तो क्या आप बाहर बैठ जाएंगे 2 मिनट विदाउट हर्टिंग? क्या आप 2 मिनट बाहर बैठ सकते हैं?
तो सर, आर यू एबल टू बी एज पोलाइट जैसे अभी आप मेरे से हो रहे हैं?
सर मोस्टली कई बार हाथ जोड़ देता हूँ कि प्लीज मुझे बात करने दो, और चौथी बार ये कहता हूँ कि भाई आपको जल्दी है तो मैं दवाई लिख देता हूँ, मेरे को इससे ज्यादा और नहीं कर सकता. बट 5th और 6th टाइम आई मे लूज, एंड देन आई एम अ लिटिल स्ट्रिक्टर.
Okay.
You're
Okay,
really
sir.
right.
Sir,
As it gets on the nerves.
So, sir, a few family situations. Suppose between a relatively small child and parent. So, in that scenario, what are the usual communication lapses that are happening? A child and a parent. Then we'll proceed further.
Sir,
Child suppose
generally
in a class 5th, class 6th.
बहुत सारे ऑर्डर्स और एडवाइजेस दिए जाते हैं डायरेक्ट, और हर छोटी छोटी निट पिकिंग होती है आपकी. ये
Yeah,
कपड़े
sir,
क्यों
sir,
डाले, उससे
because
क्यों बात.
sir, many people from south are also there, so
Okay,
preferably in
right.
English.
There is a lot of nitpicking, and there is a lot of over concern at that time. And especially regarding the digital media, we see a lot of comments on that and orders on that. So basically what we try to tell them is to explain them in detail, and you should also be a role model not to do that, and explain them completely in factual statements. For example, why are you seeing the mobile for so long? Rather than saying this, you say, is it necessary to see the mobile for so long? Can you keep it aside? So try to reframe those questions in your brain, because you are expecting that kind of environment time and again in the home, and then
So,
you
sir,
speak it
suppose
out.
next day again, yeah, sir, we did that. Next day again, the same situation arises. Again, the child is with the mobile phone. So then,
You don't scold the child. What we will say that you snatch. Snatching is the word which I'm using wrong. You take the mobile from the child and keep it aside. Don't speak about it, and then you conversate.
okay.
Conversation should go on regarding other topics. And then there are other things
Okay.
also apart from the communication, that like you play with the child, you spend the time with the child. Communication is one part of the relationship,
So
and you have to be a role
basically,
model
you
for
have to
them.
replace the yes. So you have to replace the phone with yourself. You have
Yes,
to be present for the phone to be taken away.
and that too also in a cordial manner. It doesn't mean that you're
Yeah.
physically present, but there is no cordiality in between. You have to replace it with further entertainment things, rejuvenating things. It can be physical board games, or card games, or you can talk, or you can take the child to the walk. These kind of things, but you have to take time out. Communication is one part.
So then let me come to the teenage child and the parent. So what are the issues that you commonly see and how do you address?
So the common thing is that may not be a part of communication, but common thing which we face is that I have all the rights. Now you have given birth to me and I will do all this. You will support me. They don't realize their responsibilities. At that time, we have to counsel them about rights and responsibilities together, that it is only in the Western world that your rights and responsibilities are maintained because you are responsible for yourself at this age. But in India, if you are having the rights from your parents, you have to be responsible till you are financially independent.
Okay.
And that is asked in
Okay.
a
And
question
then, sir,
form.
there is a
That is
situation
always
in.
asked in a question form.
Okay. So now, suppose the situation is between spouses. So husband and wife are there, and suppose one is trying to dominate. So what are the pointers that that we should be aware of, and how to deal with that? What are the major problems in communication there?
Sir, basically, it many a times depends on the underlying personality of those adults. We cannot counsel each and every adult. We try to counsel them. We try to show them the bigger picture of their communication. If the same kind of talks are done to you, what will happen to you? How will you feel? If you are interjected or criticized time and again, how will you feel? Explain. And then we tell them about the intent and the approach. Your intention is all right. You don't wish to be away from your spouse, or you don't wish to get divorced, or you don't wish to get separated, or you don't wish to fight. But the communication in which you are doing is wrong. Most of the time, there are underlying anxieties which we need to control with the help of medication also. And then we tell them the right ways of approach communication, that you try to praise also. Most of the time they forget to praise their spouses. See, when we pray, that is the example which we give. When we pray, at the end we demand something from the God. But for the first 5-10 minutes, we are just praising the God, praising the Lord. So this is type of examples which we give. So if the God is happier with your praises and then he gives you something, so why can't be the persons?
Okay, some bribe, then you get your work done.
Yes. Yes. I hope I was that efficient. I would have a long queue of patients outside my clinic. We can talk about
No,
it.
but it is true, sir. It is true that we praise much less than we criticize. That is a general observation of us as a society.
Definitely.
That it comes very easily to criticize.
Yes.
Sir, long queue outside means you are not efficient. So no queue.
So that's a.
Yeah.
Should I take it as a compliment or a?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
That
My
you're
patients
managing your
complain if
time.
there is a queue. They say, doctor, you're
Okay.
not managing your time. So no
Okay.
queue.
Yes.
Okay.
Chalo, but excellent. I think very, very
There is
helpful for all of us.
question in the chat box. Yeah, question in the chat box. How do we reverse the damage of bad communication with our youth?
Somebody
How do we
senior
reverse
can
that?
tell. Somebody senior in the audience can tell this. Or again, basically
I think
by
Reversing the communication with
reversing
youth
the damage.
Reversing
Reversing
the
the damage due to
done
bad
by
communication.
words. Yes.
done by words to whom? I mean, it can be in any relationship, right?
Usually directed at the young, and I think it seems like a parental
Young people.
communication to the child.
Yes, 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 yes.
So Anjali ma'am, your views on it.
Sure, sure, sure. So I think first acknowledging it, so if I had to tell the parent, and I did this with a parent today, I made the child and parent sit together and pointed out to the parent how the child had felt every time they were correcting her, and helped her to understand. And she said that, oh, I was just trying to correct my child like any mother, which is what, but then I explained to her how it had damaged the self-esteem of the child. And she kind of understood and acknowledged it. Okay, now going forward also, I asked the child, I said, how would you like to be corrected? How would you like to be addressed? What communication would you like in case you make some mistakes? And how would you like your parents to correct you? So we formed a kind of a communication, some rules for communication, which were very clear, which were very simple, nothing great. And I've told them to try that out and come back in 2 to 3 weeks, saying that there will be mistakes, there will be slip-ups, but let us work on it. And I've given them a 3-month deadline for that. So it's not something that is happening continuously, you know. So this way one can try and one can help them to communicate with each other. Simple rules: you cannot leave the room, you cannot use bad language, you cannot storm out, you cannot throw things. You know, just very, very simple rules which are for both, not only for the child. You know, because today it's no longer that parents are talking down at the child. It is an equality system. There is no dictatorship. So I think once we've explained this, you know, things improve. And the child also knows that you are there to help if something falters. In short.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So a longer statement has just come up. I'll read it out. As to there is a compliment for Dr. Rajiv that it was an informative content. However, I would like to know one thing. What are some of the healthier ways to interrupt an unwanted conversation? We cannot always hear out the complete things before telling them that the conversation is not going in the right direction.
Sorry, I am unable to understand that when one is talking to you and you wish to leave the conversation, that it means that,
Yeah.
or
Yes.
when two
Yes.
other persons are talking and you can always leave
Like
that conversation.
I think like you shared that example, sir, that there are people with the patient who are interrupting and not letting you talk to the patient directly. What is the right way to interrupt?
So then you have to say, excuse me, it is not interrupting. You are the controller at that time. You are the king at that time. They have come for help. You have to tell them, excuse me, it is a limited time. It is not an endless time, and I need to gather information for your benefit. It is going to impact you. So can I talk to you one by one? In fact, let me tell you a personal thing. When I was engaged, a family member of my wife came over for a treatment, and they came in bulk, 7 or 8. They started interacting with each other when I was just taking the interview of the patient. And I told them clearly, please, one by one, in strict assertive manner, not in a loud or that manner, because you have come here not for the relationship, you have come here for the treatment part. And the news went to my in-laws कि boss देख लो लड़का गुस्से वाला है. So basically you have to be assertive, not shouting, but you have to be assertive, and you have to set the boundaries right at that time.
Agreed.
Telling that
Being assertive without getting aggressive.
Yes.
Yes.
Telling that it's their loss.
The next one is a very specific situation.
Right.
So the next
Satyan,
question.
you wanted to complete the Satyan, please.
Yes. The next question was how to deal with the OCP, obsessive high achiever husband, having a histrionic wife, recently married, presenting with dissociative neck movements whenever she is criticized or stressed. Now, husband wants a clearance from the psychiatrist that she will never develop another episode of dissociative. If episode occurs, he is threatening that he will go for a divorce. Okay.
See, we are not obliged to give a certificate that we can totally treat the patient. We are obliged to treat the patient, not cure the patient. So we are telling the factual information that now if you behave this way, then this is going to happen. You have to show that stressor will cause stress. And you have provided the information, you have done all the treatment. Now it's up to them whether they are changing or not.
Right. I tell them a story sometimes, sir. Sometimes I tell them that there used to be a person who was told by his doctor कि ये गोली खाते टाइम अगर आम का ख्याल आ गया आपको तो गोली काम नहीं करेगी.
Right.
Now, however much a person may try not to think of that idea, whenever he is taking the tablet, definitely that idea will come.
आएगा.
So very similarly, you tell them that the behavior has a certain trigger. If we
Yes.
are able to control the triggers, then probably it's a vicious cycle which the young couple find themselves in.
Right.
And
अब
both
ऐसे
people have to
कई सारे parents आते हैं who are anxious. Basically, there are lot many
Yes.
parents who are anxious, but they have not gone into full blown anxiety disorder, and their child
Yes.
are suffering. So when we tell them that it is your anxiety which is making the child suffer, they won't come to the clinic next time.
Right.
They will not accept. So
But
similarly
they
with the
need to be told.
OCP people, if you tell them their part, they will not come, even if factual information, not blaming them.
Okay, Dr. Satyan, are you through?
Sorry, I missed some part maybe.
I think it's an early wind up today.
Sir,
Yeah, I think
yes,
we have done all
you
the
have
questions.
actually
So-
clarified so many things. And I believe that I like that definition of learning very well. And I try to tell patients also that learning doesn't mean knowing. Learning means a change in behavior. Right. So once that has happened, we can only give them the ideas and suggestions as to how to improve communication, but it requires unlearning your natural pathways which have happened over a lifetime and relearning newer ways of communication, which is not
Yes.
prickly, which is not criticizing, which is not using these always and never statements. So
Yes.
it is a task and it is a process.
Yes.
One cannot expect that change will happen just because I have told you.
Yes. 100% is only a number.
Agreed. Sir.
It
Yeah.
is a path.
So to the panel, I was hearing one of these George Carlin stand-up videos on euphemisms. So he describes how you are trying to soften your language just to be nice. So are we getting too softy and too nice from our previous generations?
Yes, sir. Acha, chalo, the panel.
I'll send the video
I will-
if you watch. It will be
I love a comedian's perspective always because I believe that he has been able to take the full picture and then find an angle from where it is funny. A comedian is a systems analyzer, and definitely a comedian's point of view is always to be taken with a lot of respect.
This
So
reminds
I
me.
agree.
Yeah,
So
this reminds
basically,
me.
when we are getting westernized, we have to learn the Western ways of communication.
Yeah, this reminds me. Russell Peters' very famous stand-ups, where he
Yes,
talks the
yes.
difference between a white parenting, black parenting, and Indian parenting. White parenting is like what we need to learn these days. Talk very softly. You can't raise your voice. You cannot hit the child. And they have their own rights. You have your own rights. Whereas Indian parent is, that's what I think. That's what we're trying to say. I think we have to. I think Dr. Aleem ka point बहुत important है because I think somewhere now a lot of teachers comes to me from school and they feel very exacerbated because they cannot say anything to kids now, and they feel frustrated. And I'm not, and this is the problem with the school now is my son's school. The teachers keep changing because they cannot cope with the pressure.
Yes.
Because they have the kids are bullying the teachers these days, or parents आके खड़े जाते हैं. So I think this is where probably this point that we too soft with kids these days. We need to be also evaluate as a society, and how do we balance being fair with the kids, जो Dr. Rajiv बोल ही रहे हैं, how to have a better open communication, but at the same time assert certain kind of authority and discipline. That's See, because
Yeah,
they-
yeah, that is my point. That is my point. Are we getting too much soft and too much westernized?
Sir, I think wisdom lies in the middle path, in not being as harsh and physical with their expressions of love as our parents were, and not being completely hands off and too politically correct like what we see. We have to live
Yeah,
in
I think
reality.
Tufan sir is there. So Tufan sir, you are
Yes.
one of the most senior person here. So from when you were child and the communication pattern when you were child, then now what you see the difference over a period of time? Sir, your comment.
My comment, there is a big difference. But I would like to quote Socrates. In his time, he told that our children are going astray. अब हम वही बता रहे हैं. The whole thing is that this generation gap is increasing, and now it is increasing with a bigger pace. अभी हम बात कर रहे थे मोबाइल फोन का. How can you take a mobile phone, a laptop, or an iPad from a student when in class 10 you are asking him use this and make your project? तब तो दिन में 7, 8, 10 घंटा करना पड़ेगा. How can you justify that आप इसको यूज मत करो? That becomes a double-blind communication. और
Yes.
हमारे टाइम में seniors, our teachers, even senior directors were a little bit more assertive than we can be today, but they were more acceptable. Nowadays, its acceptability has changed. What he was telling, teacher is transferred. Teacher does not rarely gels with it. So what has happened? We are researching on communication. But what is more important, equally important as communication, is connection. If communication does not lead to connection, be it across the table as a clinician or be it across the hall as a teacher and student, it fails somewhere. So there has to be connection, and every patient, every student is individually different. We have to change our attitude only, and for every patient, every doctor, every teacher in his or her own style has to devise strategies how to deal. हम ऐसे बता नहीं पाएंगे यही स्ट्रेटेजी 1, 2, 3, 4 एल्गोरिथम आप कनेक्टेड हो जाओगे. But this is my opinion.
Very valuable, sir. Very valuable. Really enjoyed this. I think it was very, very, very valuable. Connection.
So from all the session, what I gather is now, what we are speaking is manifestation of our thoughts. So first, get your thoughts sorted out. You get your you understand the situation. You should know how to react, and then one of your methods of communication is the speech. Plus other things are there, non-verbal and all things are there. So you have to understand the situation, sort out the situation, sort out yourself, and then when you're able to speak properly, you're able to communicate properly, you try to diffuse the situation or crisis or whatever things are there, and not in fact put more petrol in the fire. So is it Rajiv, what's your comment on it?
Definitely. You have summed it very well. This is how we should know. We should acknowledge that there is a problem. Then we should realize that the thoughts should be monitored or rewired. And accordingly, there should be rework on those thoughts in your behavior. And then you can reclaim the relationship.
And Rajiv boss, can we learn this thing? Suppose I'm very sort of I can change my speech, I can change my approach to things. Is it a learnable behavior?
Definitely, sir. Definitely, but it's a very tortoise race. The fourth part of the book is on how to implement these techniques. So basically, you should know, first of all, acknowledge, then you should know where are you harming, and then what are the replacements, and then you should continue those replacement in your mind regularly. And you have to do it formally, willfully. Initially, it will look like as a formal thing or a acting or an unnatural thing, but slowly and slowly it creeps in your personality. But it takes time. It takes time. It takes a good enough amount of time, and you go back to your natural personality whenever there are stressors or a difficult time. but in general, you are able to change yourself.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So those who want to want the book can get it from Rupa Publications.
Amazon, sir. Amazon.
Amazon.
Amazon पे
Okay.
दोनों books available हैं. Rewire, Rework, Reclaim, How to Manage Stress, and Speak to Anyone Easily.
Okay.
आपकी सीवी
So
में
now
मिसिंग आपकी सीवी में मिसिंग थी, नहीं वाली किताब नहीं
तभी
लिखा
तो मैंने अपडेट किया ना लास्ट में. लास्ट टाइम मेरे को पता लग गया था when Dr. Sajila was presenting that you have not updated my CV. So I updated my CV myself, version August 2024.
Okay. So now remarks from the chairpersons and any take home points from them, any tips from the chairpersons, and then we can go ahead.
No, I think a lot of the topic has been summed up, and we've discussed a lot of communication issues, so I think great job, lots to learn, how to communicating effectively, and I think Satyan is going to become Satyan Baba very soon with all his Vishesh Tipnis. Satyan, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But yes, this is, I think, another lesser acknowledged part of relationships in terms of how we can make them better through communication. And I think there were valuable lessons today and a very nice summing up by Dr. Tufan that yes, there needs to be a connection before the correction. Agreed, 100%, because for that communication to be effective, first the person has to connect with you. Agreed. And for that, yes, with every subsequent generation, I think our language skills and our communication skills have to be updated. It's very, very important. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv, for writing that book, as well as for sharing that wisdom with us today. And I would want to leave it to Dr. Tufan to please bring today's proceedings to an end, please.
Amrit is there,
Thank
Ali?
you.
No, sir, Amrit, his connection is not working, so he's just messaged me.
His
SMS.
communication is not working.
Okay.
His communication is working at a level it will be late to reach that.
Right.
Okay, it's a nice
Sir,
evening.
over to you for
Yeah.
wind up here.
It's nice, and Dr. Rajiv has spoken so easily, not to anyone, to everyone over here. And this presentation has expanded the horizon, not to anyone, everyone. Thank you for a good lucid summary. And the one thing, we always tell psychiatry when we have students of non-medical students, the psychiatry is the top therapy. But nowadays it is important to realize that we are talking about the talk, how to speak.
Right, sir.
So thanks for bringing it to light.
I am humbled, sir.
Yeah. And
Humbled by
thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, sir. Keep writing books and keep teaching us.
Thank you.
And, okay, you are there. Mine such a Dr. Chhavaria Anjali has left.
Yeah. No.
And thanks,
Anjali ma'am,
Dr.
thank
Elite.
you. Thank you,
Dr. Alim.
Satyan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good
Dr.
night.
Vishal. Thanks
Ma'am,
all
next
the
time when you are,
participants
yes,
and all, and Amrit in absence because we are sorry he lost his connection. And thanks all the participants and thanks to Tarun.
Yeah,
for helping
Tanmani
us
is
with
also
this.
here. Tanmani ma'am. Thank you.
Tarun is concealing his face. Niska भी थी, निस्का भी पर्दा डाल दिया.
Yeah, she wants to speak something. Unmute कर देते हैं. You can unmute.
Good evening, sir. Actually, the very interesting takes I could get from the presentation, and it took us to a different world. But what is important is many a times communications, we need to understand why that communication is coming from a person. So the superficial aspect hurts us more rather than we going deeper inside what is causing those like communications to occur. Matlab, this is an like for the bigger ones. I'm not talking about child-parent relationship, and that hurts. So we need to go into deeper understanding of these things. Then only communication will improve. So that is something very important, which I have seen in many relationship problems. And then the role of social media today. We communicate more on the social media rather than communicating one-to-one kinds. So that is also a troublesome thing which has recently come up. So just these two things, because that gives us more of a dopamine high rather than like even our friendship, our everything that has been on a toss. We express everything, even birthday wishes, everything we want to show the world instead of showing the feelings between two of us. So just whatever my understanding says. And Dr. Rajiv sir, I think since Gangaram days, like I just wanted to hear you once again, and same vibes. It took us to a different world, many different things to learn today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra.
Thank you. So ending the meeting now. Thank you. Good night all.
Good night.